Well, good morning, and thank you for registering and attending this OneSpatial webinar. Today's session is all about FME and its integration with the Esri platform. My name's David Eagle. I work for OneSpatial. I'm one of the consultants, and welcome. So the focus of today's session will look at the use of FME in two areas around the Esri stack. We'll look initially at some tips of how to use Esri functionality inside of FME. So what parts of Esri technology can we reach in the FME product, in FME Workbench. We're also then going to look at the capability around something called FME application extensions, and that will allow us to unlock the use of FME inside Esri. So from both ends really we're looking at this, inside the Esri application and also inside FME. So first of all, very brief overview about who we are. OneSpatial are an organisation that work with all sorts of industry sectors. We have a focus on spatial big data. We work with a number of technology partners, and the partner that we're focusing this session on is Safe Software, up there on the right hand side of the screen. Safe Software are the vendors of FME. We have capability globally around the FME technology stack, so that's with all three products. That's FME Desktop, FME Server and FME Cloud. We've been a value-added reseller for a long time now, since 1999. Safe themselves have been an organisation since around 1994, so we very quickly realised that what Safe were doing was very interesting and wanted to look at working with them, and have had a successful partnership for a long time. We do a number of services around FME. That includes helping people understand whether FME is the correct product for the task that's required. We have a number of FME certified professionals who are able to deliver consultancy using FME, making sure that we provide the best solutions for a required task. We deliver a number of core FME training courses, whether they are introductory, advanced, or focusing on products like FME Server. And of course, if you buy FME from us, you get your technical support direct from ourselves. If you're interested in any of those services or would just like to find out a little bit more about FME, please email us at fme@onespatial.com. So the three products that Safe produce are FME Desktop, FME Server and FME Cloud. The interesting thing perhaps that some of you haven't realised is that FME Cloud is FME Server, but it's hosted on Amazon Web Services, AWS. So effectively there are really two products that Safe produce, FME Desktop and FME Server, and it's either on-premise, installed on-premise, or installed in the cloud environment. What we're going to take a look at is how we can draw on the capabilities of Esri inside of FME initially. So there's a number of ways that this can be carried out, but one of the key stipulations that you'll find quite quickly is that to get access to some of the capabilities, you need to have FME and Esri installed on the same machine. Now that could be a physical box or it could be a virtual machine, but either way those two applications have got to sit next to each other in order for you to effectively use the two tools together. That goes for server environments as well. If you had FME Server and you wanted to do some of the things I'm going to be showing you within your workspaces running on FME Server, then you would also need to have the third-party tool, Esri, in this conversation, installed on that same machine. What I would encourage you to do is to go and have a look at the FME Knowledge Center. There are a number of extremely useful articles around this topic over on the Knowledge Center. And a key or a core term that I would suggest you search for is the term Esri compatibility. Because what you'll find when you do that search is this page here is called Notes on FME and Esri versions and compatibility. That page is probably the most used page on the Knowledge Center. It's certainly the most read. It's one of the most frequently updated as well. So you can see that this was updated very recently. Edited very recently. What this page consists of is a focus on the ArcGIS versions that are supported. It also goes into the detail of what build of FME you would need for a particular build of ArcGIS. And you can also see that as you scroll down, there is a focus on the Esri formats that are supported based on the version, the bit version that you're working with. So it's an important page. Also, there is reference a little bit further down regarding the data interoperability extension, so you can go and have a look at that as well. So useful page, worth a read. So we're going to get straight into the technical aspect of this session. What can you do in FME when you've got Esri already installed? Well, let's go and have a look at a simple capability around shapefile indexing. So if I launch FME Workbench, and we're going to have a look at the bit version briefly, just to check what we have here. So you can see that I have a 32-bit FME installed, and I'll go into the detail of that in a little while. But what I'm going to do is drag into this workflow a very simple workspace that I have written. As you can see, there is a creator transformer included in here. It's creating a single point in British National Grid. So that's being generated. If I just disable that and connect an inspector and run it, we'll send that single point out to the Data Inspector application. And there it is. And it's a single point in the middle of Wales. So a simple point geometry, and you can see that that's in British National Grid. So the key thing here that I want to focus on is the fact that we have a shape writer included. So when you go to the writers and add writer, if you search for the Esri shape format, you can see it here. Most of you who use FME will be very familiar with the fact that readers and writers in FME all have their own parameters, things that you can do differently with each format. In the case of writing out a shapefile, one of the things that you can do is you can choose to index the shapefile or not. So let's go and have a look at this capability. So if we run this, and we can see that parameter is exposed here in the navigator at the moment. Right spatial index is set to no. So if we run this, and while we're doing that, we'll open the containing folder, and I'll bring that in. You can see I've just written out that shapefile. Importantly, though, I can spatially index. Now, those of you who have used FME for a little while know that this was possible in the past, but not with a tick box. It wasn't as simple as that. You had to take some Python code and run it as a shutdown script. But now you can tick the box, but there is a stipulation that you have to have Esri installed on your machine, and you need to have a license available, and you see that flash by. But let's go and have a look at what happened in the log there. You can see that after the data has been written, the Esri ArcGIS license is effectively checked out in order to create that spatial index. So Esri creates the spatial index. It's not something that FME does. So just ticking that box. If you do tick that box and perhaps you don't have an Esri license, then the process doesn't fail, but what it will fail to do, as you can see from this error here, is it will fail to create that index. So if I go and have a look in that that directory now, what you'll see in there is the index files have arrived as a result of running that process. So it's a very simple operation, and you can create that spatial index directly using FME, and it borrows that capability from over in from over on the Esri application side. So it just saves you having to go and do that work as a separate step. So what about reading and writing geodatabases? Well, some of you will perhaps be aware that let's just go and close that down. In Workbench, it's possible to generate a workspace, and you'll see that there are a number of formats that are available to you on the Esri side. Well, a couple of things to be aware of. One is that just having ArcGIS installed doesn't necessarily help you out. What you also have to make sure is that your FME edition is a suitable level. So you would need the FME Esri edition or higher to unlock some of what we're seeing. When it comes to working with geodatabases, you can see here that my reader gallery includes access to the Esri GeoDatabase API reader. In 2012, Esri opened up the API for the file geodatabase to allow us to work with that without having to have Esri technology or an Esri license available. However, it's not the full-blown geodatabase. In order to deal with things like metadata and complex geometry, you would need to use the reader or the writer here that's referenced as having ARC objects in its name. That's the official Esri reader. And let's just go and look at the difference between the two. If I have a look at the API reader, I'm going to point this at a geodatabase that I have available. So let's just bring that in and click on parameters, and you see that there's the dialog box that's available to us using the open source, the free API reader. Click on the table list, it will navigate into the geodatabase and allow me to select a particular feature class. But if we go and swap this to the ARC objects reader, which if I have Esri installed, I'm able to now go and use, I can go and click on the parameters, and it's a very different dialog box. So you can see here there's reference to domains and subtypes and complex edges and multi-part annotations, and I can read in metadata all the features. So it's a slightly different beast when it comes to working with geodatabases. So if I go and have a look again at the same capability, I'll go and read in food vendors and parks and bring that data in. And I'm going to write this out, in this case, to Esri shape. We'll specify an output directory that will go just there. I could specify a spatial index, but for the sake of this, we'll just bring that in as is. So there's our workspace. We have the ability now to read in our geodatabase content, and if I run that to our output directory, it'll pass the features through, and a handful of seconds, 0 warnings, which is always a good thing to see in a workspace. And if I right click and open the containing folder, in here we have our park and food vendor data that we've just read out of our geodatabase. So the ARC objects reader, that's the official one. The API reader is the open source one. The ArcObjects one, we need to have Esri technology installed in order to use the libraries that ship with that product and allow us to consume that data. The writer is also available. If we go in, we can look for the ArcObjects writer, and there it is. It's available to me if I want to write any data out to a GeoDatabase. When it comes to working with coordinate systems, having Esri installed on a machine that also has FME is beneficial, because we can consider using the reprojection capabilities of Esri instead of FME's reprojection capabilities, and it's an interesting concept as to why you might want to do that. So let's go and have a look at our options. What I've got is another pre-configured workspace, and in this workflow I have a workflow that is reading in some shapefiles, 3 shapefiles in this case. So if we just disable that portion of the workflow, and I will enable that one and run it. I have 3 sets of bike paths, so short, medium and long in this case. So those polylines are in a local coordinate system, UTM-83-10. It's a local grid in the Vancouver region in this case. And what I'd like to do is use the standard reprojector in FME. So I'm just going to enable it. There we go. Enable that. I'm going to delete those inspectors. I read the coordinate system off the shapefiles, effectively out of the PRJ that's incoming, write it out to lat long 84 in this case, split the data back into its component parts using the feature type filter, and then send it off to individual inspectors. So let's just run that this time. Carry out the reprojection, and I'm just going to turn off the background map because that doesn't help us see what's going on here. There's the slightly stretched reprojected data in lat long 84, so we can see that that result. What the Esri reprojector allows us to do is to use the catalogue of projections that are stored over in Esri, and one of the benefits of that, if I just show you this for a moment, if I click in, there's the typical Esri dialog box with our projected and geographic coordinate systems. The reason why this is very useful is because I'm often asked if you've spent time customizing or creating a custom projection in your Esri application, how do I add that projection into FME? And there are absolutely ways of creating custom projections inside the FME product directly, but if you've spent time configuring that over in Esri and you are an organization that uses Esri technology, then there is absolutely no reason to have to go and specify that custom coordinate system a second time. You can just use the Esri reprojector, come in and select that coordinate system that you've defined, and then use it within the Esri reprojector. So that's effectively what we're going to do here. Reproject it instead using Esri and write it out in the same way. So if we just run that, we'll pass it through, and what you'll see in the log file is a very slight hang. It does pause for a moment, and that's effectively at the point where it's going to get an Esri license file, and it should log in here somewhere. I can't actually spotted at the moment, but it is in there somewhere where it's getting a license and using the libraries from Esri in order to do that reprojection. One of the other things to bear in mind is that the Esri reprojector reprojects data that passes through it in this flow. You could send the data elsewhere, and you could still use Esri to carry out a reprojection, because when you have a reader and a writer, you also have coordinate systems to define on the reader and on the writer. Now, if you leave the coordinate system undefined on the reader, that won't make any changes to the reader. If you change the projection on the writer, then that will carry out a reprojection. By default, that reprojection will be done using FME's technology. If you want it to be done using Esri, then you need to actually go into the advanced parameters, and you'll see under here there is a reprojection engine parameter, and by default that's set to FME. If you don't have any other product installed on your machine, the only thing that you'll see in this drop down is the word FME. However, if you have Esri installed, when you drop it down, you'll see that effectively now you can tell FME to use the Esri reprojection engine by default. So that's another tip to bear in mind, and that will affect your process if you are doing reprojection on the writer rather than within the workflow using a transformer. Lastly, I believe when it comes to looking at working with Esri things inside FME, I want to touch on a couple of things. One is the readers and writers for the ArcGIS Online feature service. If you hadn't realized, those formats do exist, allowing you to consume content directly from AGOL and write it into AGOL feature services. The other capability is that using, in particular, a transformer like the HTTP caller transformer, bundled up inside many of the custom transformers that are available on the FME Hub, is a transformer that allows you to communicate with APIs. It's that HTTP caller. If you want to go and browse some of the transformers that are available, it's worth having a look at the hub on hub.safe.com. There are now, I believe, a couple of hundred transformers available that have been generated and created by the user community. We've created a few ourselves, but there are a very solid collection of transformers available over here. I believe, if I just do a quick search, there are, as you can see here, 4 ArcGIS Online transformers that effectively use or leverage the AGOL REST API. You can see here there's a GeoEnricher, online service area calculator, the AGOL geocoder, and routing engine effectively. So worth going and downloading those transformers and having a look. Within the Workbench interface, in order to go and find those transformers, you need to make sure, first of all, you have a web connection. But if we go to the transformer gallery here, you'll see in the FME store, if you refresh it, it will make a connection and allow you to see the transformers that are available. So what I could do is go and search for ArcGIS, and there's the ArcGIS Online geocoder, which if I double click it, it will add it onto the canvas, having downloaded it directly from the hub. If for any reason you have difficulty connecting or getting transformers through the store, what I'd suggest, and it's something that we see quite a bit, is that you need to go and have a look at your network proxy settings. Either try swapping from no proxy to using your system proxy. If that doesn't work for you, then you are more than likely going to need to talk to somebody in your IT department to allow them to unlock access to that basically get across your firewall to allow access to the hub and to things like custom transformers within FME. A hot tip really is that if you have a look at this initial page, the Start tab in Workbench, and if this page never changes for you, then FME probably can't see the internet. This is effectively a web page. You can see that at the moment the FME World Tour and the user conference are starting to be advertised as events. So worth checking whether you can actually get access to the internet using Workbench. So now I'm going to switch gears a little. I'm going to move over to the other side of the fence, effectively looking at something called FME application extensions. So what is one, if you haven't heard of the term before? Application extensions are basically products that use or embed FME functionality. And one thing to bear in mind is that the capability varies depending on the product that is being extended. What it might mean is that you have the ability to work with a greater number of formats than perhaps you did previously, or perhaps you can do a lot more than that. There are varying levels of integration. FME can extend quite a few applications, although at the moment it doesn't currently extend any applications on a Mac or on Linux, so it's constrained by a Windows operating system at the moment. So that's a small health warning to add. What applications can be extended? Well, there is a little utility that some people who use FME never realize is there, so it's worth digging around and finding the integration console and launching it. The hot tip is to launch the application as administrator. You need to do that because effectively you're extending another application, so you need admin rights to do that. And if you have any of these tools installed, so either ArcGIS or AutoCAD Map 3D or Civil 3D, there is also an exporter for Autodesk Revit, so a healthy level of support for Autodesk products. Hexagon's Geospatial GeoMedia desktop tool, and also MapInfo Professional from Pitney Bowes. All of those 6 tools are able to be extended by FME. So how's that done? Well, we'll get into that in a second. The key thing to make sure that you achieve, and that's one of the reasons why I checked the bit version of FME earlier on, is that you make sure that your 64-bit and 32-bit applications are extended using the right FME. So bit compatibility is something that in our industry at the moment we have to be very mindful of, because a lot of applications are either running dual running different bit versions of their applications, just like Microsoft Office does, or they are moving over to the 64-bit platform. Still, organizations are using 32-bit operating systems, and that does limit you a little, but slowly organizations are shifting over. The other thing to be aware of is that fixed or node lock licenses of FME Desktop automatically extend compatible third-party software installed on the same system. So that's just something to be aware of. It's not necessarily a problem. For floating licenses, it's not auto. You have to go and actually apply the extension manually. FME can't extend shared applications that are installed on a different machine. That's part of what I was saying about making sure that FME server has the utility installed on the same machine if you want FME server to use the capabilities of a third-party tool. So they need to be on the same box, be it a physical machine or a virtual machine. So let's go and have a look at the integration console on my machine and see what we've got here. So if I just dig into the tools, so let's just go to Start and go and find FME in here. You can see I've got a number of versions installed. There's my 32-bit FME 2016 installer, and what I want to find is the integration console. But as I said, I need to make sure I launch it and run it as administrator, and we get lots of notifications to allow us to do that. And you can see that on my machine I have 2 applications that can be extended, and the one that we're going to focus on here is the FME extension for ArcGIS. And you can see that it is extendable, and as I set it up initially in administrator mode, opened it up, I can click on the extend button and it tells me which build I'm using. So that's the 32-bit build of FME that I've just launched here. You can see that down there. So I've applied the extension. So in order to see what capabilities you might have, just launch that and it'll tell you what applications. It effectively does a scan. You can see in here that you can perform a refresh and it goes and scans for applications that are available. So now that we've carried that out, I just need to return to my slide deck, which has defaulted back, but there we go. You can see that you run it as administrator and apply the extension. Then we need to go over to the other application, whatever that is, and sometimes, depending on that tool, you will need to effectively accept that extension or that capability. So we need to do that in the case of Esri by going and having a look at the extensions and turning that on. So let's just do that. So I'm just going to go and launch. In this case, I'm going to launch ArcGIS and I'm going to launch ArcCatalog. So that's just popping open now. And as soon as it appears, we need to go and have a look in the Customize and Extensions. And you'll see that as soon as you've applied the extension in the integration console over here, when you launch ArcCatalog, you have access to the FME extension for ArcGIS. And what I'd suggest you do is, I have clicked that already, is just be a bit patient. If you think you've clicked it, just wait. It's effectively just joining those applications. FME extension for ArcGIS is now enabled, and I can now just click close and we can go and discover what's available to us. So what do we get? So there's a few things. I'm going to cover a couple of them now. The first one is available is the FME Interoperability tools directly there. So we can go and have a look into our system toolboxes. Let's expand that down, and here's the FME Interoperability tools. And you can see that effectively we have access to a quick import and a quick export. So let's just see that here. So we can carry out an import of any supported format that FME supports and bring that into a staging GeoDatabase. So you can see that if I launch that here, we have our input data set, and from our catalog we effectively are opening up a very familiar FME dialog box. So in here we can now go and pick one of the formats that we're interested in reading in and writing that into, as it says here, a staging GeoDatabase. So getting that into an environment, into the Esri environment from wherever the data sits at the moment. So that's an import option. When it comes to exporting, you can see here that you can bring in a layer, and that layer would be from something like a GeoDatabase or SDE, wherever you've got that stored. And then you can define an output data set and where you'd like that to go, and you can see that again we launch effectively an FME interface, and we can choose the format that we want to write that out to. So perhaps you want to export some data out to KML or Apple's venue format. You can see that there. So that quick import, quick export is effectively ways of getting data into the Esri environment. So anything into a GeoDatabase or going from a GeoDatabase to anything outside of the Esri environment. But in order to do it, you're effectively doing that import-export within an environment if you're an Esri organization with which you are already very familiar. When it comes to actually looking at more complex ETL routines, you also have the ability to create effectively a custom toolbox. If I create a brand new toolbox called test for the sake of this example, once I've done that, I can then go in and create an FME ETL tool. What that allows me to do is effectively define a transformation. So I can define a reader, and this is an FME dialog box. I can define a writer, and once I've done that and clicked OK, it will actually launch Workbench from within Esri. Now, in true Blue Peter fashion, I have prepared one already. You can see it's called GPS Process, and I should be able to go and edit that. Let's just see. So here I'm reading in a little bit of JSON data. So this is just a path of an electric car, and it's points of interest effectively along that route that have been captured, and I'm writing the data out. So that's how I can edit the input and the output. What I want to do though is go and edit the actual process, and you'll see that I'm launching Workbench from within Arc Catalog. So here's the workspace that's been defined, and those of you who are already familiar with FME Workbench will notice that there is a few buttons missing here. For example, I can choose to save the workspace. Let's go and have a look. Let's just make a change here. Go to the file drop down. If I choose save, what it's not doing is giving me an FMW file, an FME workspace. It's effectively a toolbox that is buried and opened from within the Esri application. So in this workspace, what I've got at the moment is the ability to consume some JSON, pop open the inspector here, throw over what I've got. So here we've got some points along the route. If I go back to the workflow and just effectively finish it off, use a point connector to generate some lines, and I'm writing this out to a polyline geometry into a shapefile called Tesla route. And if I now connect that to an inspector and run that, send it to the inspector, and there we go. And if I just right click and open the containing folder, there's the Tesla route with the other shapefiles that we created earlier on. Once I'm happy with that, I can save it and close it down, and I've got a toolbox here that I can work with. So that's a handy capability. I've now got an ETL workflow that's sitting inside my Esri application that I could call up. It means that you could generate this for a colleague, and they could use it, integrate it with their day-to-day use of Esri as well. You can also see that there is the option to create a model. Effectively have a model, an Esri model that we can use. We can add data in, and we can bring data from an FME connection as well. So let's go and have a look at the FME connections capability that we've got here. You can see that we can add an FME connection. So let's go and do that. So we might go and bring in data from a particular environment. Let's go and see if we've got some data that we can use here. So I've got a folder full of data, and we'll go for something like an emergency file here. So we've got a GML file. So bring in some GML data. There's our firehall connection, and we should be able to preview those points of interest. So as soon as we generate that connection, then that connection will be available for us to use over in ArcMap as well. And we can have a connection to any native file format that FME supports directly. So a number of really handy tools, having extended the FME product into Esri, and hopefully that gives you some tips and tricks of how to use Esri technology inside of FME and vice versa. And really that's where we'd like to leave it today. Hopefully that's generated a little bit of food for thought around the capabilities of linking those two very heavily used applications together to generate a little bit of more functionality than you had perhaps before. But also it is a very good way of allowing people who don't necessarily know how to use FME, but do know how to use very well the Esri product tools, and effectively carry out ETL processes within an environment that they're very comfortable with. It also, however, allows individuals who need to work with things like Esri formats and subtle things like defining spatial indexes within their FME workflow without necessarily having to go and launch the Esri toolset to carry out tasks like that. So we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us today. If you want to go and get any more resources around these topics, then obviously SAFE's website is extremely useful, coupled with knowledge.safe.com. We definitely encourage you to use the Knowledge Center. There is a huge amount of formal documentation, and there is a very good community answers environment in which you can post questions and also answer questions. We'd encourage you to do that too. Of course, if you buy your FME license from us, you're already entitled to technical support from us. So you'll already know the email address to use for our support ticket, raising a support ticket. The only other thing left for me to do is to remind you that the FME World Tour is coming to a city near you in the new year. These are the events that OneSpatial are hosting. So a good set of events all over the place actually. So we're going to be very busy, and we'd encourage you to save those dates. There will be more information soon on our website about how you can go about registering for those events. If you want to know a little bit more, or you'd like to speak at those sessions, then do please email us at fme@onespatial.com. We'd love to hear from you. For now though, thank you very much for attending this session. We hope it's been useful, and there will be some more in the new year. That's the last one for us for this series of webinars, but thank you very much for attending, and we'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to leave any messages in the chat window before you go, and we'll endeavour to get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you.